use. Motions, or is everybody good with?
Oh,
minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Approved,
There it is.
of course.
Mhm.
Okay, so then the next item is public comment.
Mhm.
So we have one member of the public. We have any comment from the public?
Yes, Stephen, we included your letter, their email,
Oh,
to our packet like last time, and you're welcome to have the floor and speak to us again.
I want to go out for a second. Is this here okay place to speak, or is it?
Yeah, pull up a chair or sit down wherever you like.
Yeah. First of all, sorry, I don't speak very well or very loudly. I don't like speaking in public, so please bear with me if I don't do this all as well as I could or should. My name is Steve Correll. I've lived in Old Town for 17-ish years. So first of all, I want to thank each of you for your time and dedication to public service. My time goes back to teaming with serving on the non-controversial Issaquah Library Board. So thanks to her and thanks to staff for all their involvement as well. So it takes something extra to choose to engage in your community where we live, in this case Issaquah. I know I do kind of a selective reading of a lot of the city documents that come out. I haven't spent a lot of time with the cemetery board or the civil service commission, or only kind of dropped by some of the others, but I've read a lot and I know it takes a lot of time. So I sometimes wish that some of the city council decisions had been other than they are. That's not what this body is about. So I'm not trying to talk about politics or anything else. Having read some of the documents, so I do appreciate your work and the work of the city council and all the meetings and stuff they go to. But that having been said, just choosing to engage in the public process is not necessarily deserving of a paid position of itself. There's an honorific and a stipend I can propose with that. I'm not saying that I disagree with the wage rate that you determined or the salary rate that goes with it. I just think part of that engagement and choice to be on city council is a personal choice to engage in changing their community. So I don't think it's based just on, should be based just on salary. And I think a lot of the city council in your documents recently kind of talked about how a lot of them have expressed the idea that they do it not for the salary, but they get the chance to contribute. So that said, I guess I would kind of disagree somewhat with not disagree somewhat, I wouldn't include automatic 3% salary increase. I think there's something public about the process that says come back every periodic to a civic body such as yours or the people that they represent and say, what should that rate be? That seems more representative than putting in, because in some place they get paid by the city, but they represent the people, and the people should have a more direct say in what that rate should be. If they want to necessarily a salary increase, maybe they should move to a city or jurisdiction that has a higher rate of pay or a different legislative body of people pay for. So I don't really have this firm stand on whether or not they should get a $200. I associate it as like a 401k reimbursement. I'm okay with that. I would rather almost see that though locked into what the pay should be as a difference from that, because in some ways I think I read that the average 69 hours per month, which I rounded up to 18 hours a week, which to me this was never meant to be a full-time position. So I don't know that it's meant to be a full-time pay. I don't know what the salary, if the city pays different rates. I know they have representative position. I know there's salary positions that I come from. There's non-salary or technical positions that pay a certain rate. I don't know if those necessarily in the city of Issaquah are different for a part-time position versus a full-time position. I don't know if that was considered taken into account. As I may recall, I may have seen Mr. Traeger on the city council and you may have seen me runners, so you kind of bring that broader perspective that I don't have all the ad hoc meetings and all the documents more to go with it. But I don't disagree with the rate. I do disagree with 3%. I do, I'm okay with trying to get the word right, a stipend for lower income, but I'd like to see that set at 60%, not 80%. And at the rate of, for an individual person, I don't know of any jobs that say I have 5 kids, therefore I can go to my boss and make an argument that because I have 5 kids, I should deserve more pay than the people. So I don't know if that's a fair inclusion. I don't know all the consideration factors that figure into who should go to city council. I would like to see a step where you serve on some board or commission to demonstrate your commitment, engagement, involvement. Ultimately, though, it's up to the people to decide who they want to choose. So I just want to take a minute, my respect of my family's time and all of your time. I just want to say thanks again for your efforts, and I'll go back to looking forward to seeing your output. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other members of the public online?
There were not, and the emails that I sent out to those that were maybe expressed interest in the salary commission,
Mhm.
there was either no response or it was satisfied with the work that you're doing. So I didn't include those neutral comments into the packet.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, well then I guess we're ready to move on to the agenda items. And item A, which is the formal report, initial draft. And so what I'd like to do is kind of go through the sections of it. And we had a couple items we probably should vote on each one as a key finding or decision. And then I have a section where if there's anything else that seems to be missing and other things. So first section is salary. Do you want to project it up on the screen?
Yeah, happy to.
Are we jumping directly to the findings and conclusions of the document?
Yeah, unless anybody's got any, I guess we can go to any of the other first
Right.
sections, if anybody's got any.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking background commission, but like all that stuff we can quickly glance through, because there's in the process and information consider, I guess, the wording is fine. We just need to change the number of meetings and the date of the final meeting, which is okay. Everybody okay with what we put in the analysis? We thought like, I think Linda had a chance to read it before just now.
Was this on the website? I looked at the other stuff. Oh, I missed it. Seems like I miss something every week. Okay.
But
Well, I read it when we were waiting. I'm fine.
Okay, so let's see, we go back to this first section here. So the background, it seems okay then, other than making sure the date.
I was just about to say someone called IT. They're all retired.
Some kind of network problem.
All right.
Okay, then we process and information considered. So that's going to meet the date and the number of meetings. Are there any other comments on the other numbers in that section?
That's all that was from
Discussion of our work here, basically.
Where's back?
And the last sentence on the page is the most important. We're very grateful for staff.
yes,
Gosh, really? Yes, our public is back.
Thank you for that inclusion.
Okay, then we go into the analysis section. Any comments on the page of that?
Are you satisfied with the edits in the first paragraph? And then, of the additional time of 5% to 10%, I just had a notation. It was unclear to me if that was a confirmed percent. So I just want to ask, produce the report if that's accurate.
No, I put 5 to 10, but the numbers were, it was up to 5% more. If I remember correctly, because from the 69, it went up to 74.
You have to put a number, you can't put
Well, I mean, we can reword it.
additional variables or.
We can say, up to 5%.
And if, you can also edit right there and it'll show up here, if that's your preference.
Why don't we say approximately 5% more?
Yeah, you do the edit since you're doing the screen share. Mm-hmm.
That's what you're thinking?
Yeah, and just remove the parentheses and you're good.
Some more additional time. Yeah, oh, yes, that's right.
Do we need the word more or do we need the word additional? Or do we need both? 5% additional time
Right,
or more? Okay.
5% additional time.
Or additional hours?
Hours, that's good. Great. So are you going 2 spaces after the period?
I've been trying to clear those out.
I object.
Yes.
Word has started underlining it now. When you have 2 spaces.
Double spacing.
So happy.
It's tough to catch.
You youngins don't know what you're doing.
That was the best part of typing. On a typewriter, click, click.
Someone to accomplish something.
Yeah.
I just had to pay people to write my term papers. And then computers save the day. That was so much.
So,
Should we say other regional cities similar to ours? Just other regional cities, would that leave it open for debate of what regional cities we chose? Should we add in regional cities?
I think we defined it here in number 4 on the page before.
Oh,
And I'm not sure we can say similar because Bellevue's on that list.
no. And, okay, there
We're
we
gonna
go.
have the report as a appendix for the.
Oh, yeah, never
It's
mind,
in
4
the
is good.
OneDrive, but I don't know, I don't know if we attached
Yeah,
it.
I have included it as an attachment to the official minutes, so it would,
It's in the
you know,
body.
live on. All your documents will, but the minute, obviously your report is the primary, and then your minutes are the secondary, and then your, all your supporting documents, the third. So if you feel it's important to link, to provide as an attachment, we can do that, or know that it lives on in the minutes easily.
I would prefer or recommend not linking it to this document because our conclusions, whatever we end up doing are not formula based off that chart
Just that,
and might distract people.
true.
Okay. And then, so city council members. And we're down to these important considerations that we sought to balance. Is that all the areas we kind of,
Yeah, that's when I think we use, make sure we all have consensus on those items there.
The third one, the goal of removing obstacles to council membership. I know it was one of my goals, and I know we discussed it at length. Should it have been one of the goals of the, I'm okay with calling it out, I'm just,
Well, it seems like,
It was a
covered in
desire.
surrounding text, and it's vague, because it would leave you wonder what obstacles,
yeah,
right? Is it an obstacle of driving, do I have to drive somewhere, or is it an obstacle of?
because
Questions, right, like it raises question, like what?
if we can reward it as, you know, the desire of removing, salary as an obstacle to council, membership or candidacy or participation in council or something to that effect. Because again, I agree with Linda's point that it seems broader obstacles that we're not
Well,
calling out.
it's almost then your perceived obstacle, you never ran for office.
Yeah, maybe it'd be something like, remove the compensation as a consideration for running.
Or reduce.
Yeah,
Reduce the salary as a consideration for running.
Right.
maybe the goal of removing the low or avoiding low compensation, disincentive.
There's a reason not to.
A reason not to run, like obstacle might be a bit hard for this.
Because the biggest obstacle is actually running.
Yeah.
Itself.
Yeah, the word deterrent comes to mind again.
The parent, disincentive, something like that, like salary, avoiding low compensation being a deterrent for disincentive for counts for seeking council membership, right? Because
Right,
I think one of the phrases we use somewhere else in here is financial challenges. So maybe the goal of removing financial challenges as obstacles to council membership.
as an obstacle to council membership, that sounds good.
So it more identifies what the obstacle we're talking about.
Yeah, would it be an obstacle then, or a perceived like a challenge or? Deterrent.
Or maybe we can just say addressing financial challenges to council membership.
The goal of addressing financial.
I think my sense is that it could be more specific. Financial challenges still a little bit like too vague. You could just say like.
Or maybe, is it understanding the financial challenges?
I mean, we're effectively, right, we're saying that if the compensation is too low, then that could be an obstacle or deterrent, right? So we can say that it's like the goal of avoiding.
Thinking of the lead into this item, the commission sought to balance, right? To balance the goal of, doesn't add up, to balance the, financial challenges that may deter from seeking council membership, right? What we balance all of those with the considerations, important considerations that preceded that section into what became our findings and conclusions, yeah?
So to balance the financial challenges that may exist.
Well, it may exist, that
Discourage.
exist, or that exist, or that deter.
I agree with what you said, but I'm not sure where you got to at the end of how you would state it.
I'm confused now.
Join me.
Yeah.
So
I think we're there.
My thinking was that these, what is it, 6 items are all the things we're trying to balance together. We're balancing, they have tensions among them.
Right, so you wanna balance the goal of you're gonna wanna balance the goal of removing obstacles to council membership. That's what it was there.
Right.
The little short one, reduce salary as a deterrent to running for council.
I think that's a better phrase.
Thank you.
More.
Speak up,
All
John.
right,
What's the percent?
And
You
they
put it
say-
right in here?
What are you?
My notes, but reduce salary as a deterrent to running for council.
Are you saying that as a goal or just straight out?
For that
Yeah,
line.
I think.
for that line.
But these important considerations, this is a consideration, okay, so.
So to balance, reducing salary as a deterrent to running.
Yeah, I guess it'd be the, like the previous one, desire to reduce salary as a deterrent to running for council.
I like that.
Wasn't your goal to widen the playing field from leveling out the playing
and
field?
that's this line, yeah.
So instead of a goal, maybe a consideration was to,
Here you go.
For the desire.
okay,
The desire to reduce, yeah, there you go.
I-
The desire to reduce salary as a deterrent to running for city council.
It's like precise, simple.
Yeah, finish in a semicolon and let it break.
yeah, because that could mean different things to different people.
And maybe just for clarity, the opening, instead of with these important considerations, it's with the above important considerations, because that's a few paragraphs above.
Mm-hmm. The awareness is that the desire to serve council is advancing compensation and a goal of being fiscally responsible. Yep. Great. Good to move on.
Okay. We got those bullet points, senators okay with those, including the one we just changed. Finding and conclusions. On to the next page.
So,
So our findings are current compensation does not fairly reflect.
The blue isn't
responsibility.
in there, sorry.
yeah, the number two.
Number 2,
There's only
The
numbers.
second line and number 2.
I'll just see how you react over there. Stress test.
City council compensation has not been adjusted since 2015. And significantly. Thanks for having conversation with our cities.
I'm fine with all those 1 through 5.
Or number, top 5.
On
It's
number,
below average compared to other comparable cities.
I think the number 3 there could be very similar to what we said, like the current conversation may discourage the current stuff like that.
Consideration. Are we on number 2 or where are we at?
You said on number 3. Create barriers to entry, or we can reword that to create a disincentive to run for council or something like that.
Do you want to take language up or?
Yeah, so the current compensation may create a disincentive to run for council. Or segments of this close community.
And then
Oh, sorry.
the rest of it.
But one thing to consider at 3 is the compensation as it relates to the amount of hours spent.
What number are you on?
Well, we're number 3, but I still want to go back to number 2.
This one is right.
Because the way 3 is reading, we weren't driven just by compensation, it was also the number of hours. Right, it's supposed to be a part-time job, but they spend all those hours. Current compensation,
But we were driven solely by, I mean, we weren't driven to the conclusions by solely compensation, but
mhm,
the scope of our work is
Yeah.
solely our own compensation, which is, I guess, what we're discussing in the findings, right? To keep it compensation based.
And number 3 is designed to support the.
Low income stipend. Yeah.
Whatever we decide to call
I think the hours there might be right on that number 1, right? The current compensation does not reflect the responsibility and demands. They're working more than.
it. Can I go back to number 1 as you raised that then? As I know I wrote this language, but responsibilities and demands are kind of the same thing. Maybe it should be responsibilities and
Mhm.
commitments. The city council membership.
responsibilities and, responsibilities and hours is more.
Work or something like that.
Could be time commitments, it could be a whole bunch of things, so.
Commitments is fine, it's nice and encompassing, whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like this, right, one.
You create segments,
Oh.
create the incentive for segments of Issaquah's community. Increases to base salary and benefits, council members earn long-term best interest of the city of Issaquah's residents.
I think I want to go back to number 2 though. What was your-
Yeah. So number 2 now.
Yeah,
If you could.
The second,
Yes.
the second half of the first line, significantly lags behind. Would it be better if we say below average of the comparable cities or something like that said? Because when we lag behind, it makes it sound like a competition. And then in the second sentence, regular adjustments, it should be regular consideration. Compensation consideration. Don't you think?
I like that second one, yeah.
Okay. To avoid continually falling behind. To avoid falling below average of our comparable cities.
I'm a little concerned about average, because we're not using a formula.
Yeah.
We're not measuring it against the average.
But when we all lined them all up, we were ending down here versus now we're gonna be like 4th or 5th.
Right, so we're gonna be above the average now, so.
Well, okay, below or above average, so.
Just
like a-
the
Or
low
you're competitive
level
now.
of comparison.
Well, we also discussed in line, given the cost of living in Issaquah, the housing costs in Issaquah. So maybe it would be more in line with the city of Issaquah. I don't know, you want to say cost of living, because that's true, just city of Issaquah.
lags behind
The
what could
area.
be, what is considered a livable wage for a part-time position in the city of Issaquah. So your point is, we shouldn't be talking about averages because we're not using a formula. And your point
That's
is, we
correct.
shouldn't be measuring against other cities because it's not a competition, right? So let's measure against ourselves to actual numbers that are there, which is a living wage
For a part-time job,
for a part-time job,
a part-time civil servant job.
right?
I think having the mention the comparable cities makes sense because that's also in the legislation, right?
I don't mind comparing, I just didn't wanna make it, when you say we laid behind, it sounds like a race.
Right.
Yeah,
The legislation, what?
Because in the state law says that the salary commission will take into account.
Right, that's a factor we're required to consider.
Oh, comparable cities is part of the.
yeah,
It's kind of weird though, because it's not like, say, trying to figure out salary for an employee. Because you are competing with other cities, and you're not competing with them in this sense, because they have to be a citizen in any of those cities to even run for council in the first place.
It's
So
not about staying competitive on the market.
Yeah, it's more about
fairly compensating for the time commitment of a,
community member, get members to come out for it because their time is valuable.
yeah,
And, you know, whether you already have a full-time job that covers your costs and just going from 40 hours a week to 68.
But number two,
I mean,
it talks
it's like
about
a lot to ask, right?
the time by which your review has happened since the last commission. So, what language would be helpful to further add it? If at all.
why don't we just keep the first sentence and then after, since 2015, period. And then finish it off with regular consideration, compensation is important to avoid continually,
Lying behind the cost of living,
right,
and that's the reality. of what we're
Exactly.
really competing
Yeah.
with.
For the regular.
just remove them.
But that's for the candidate that I need to be a council member at some city, so I'm gonna move into the city that's paying me the most. Nope, that's not happening. It's people that love this city that are,
You're not gonna get elected if you're trying to carpet bag Issaquah, that's not
You
happening.
don't get elected that, but I don't know.
Also, it's a whole other game, but-
At least from my perspective, it's important that we reflect, we consider this factor that the law requires us to consider. And it wasn't, I mean, we spent an hour talking about the comparable cities and how to look at them, and analyze them,
Yeah.
so.
How about
if we're
putting it
actively
as a
describing-
separate?
Actually, and again, in, I know it's not a competition, but even the administration's comments said, we want to maybe be in the top 4 of the comparable cities, right? So again, I don't think it's a bad thing to even mention the comparable cities, right?
yeah, I know, I'm good with that, because if anybody looked at the list of our comparable cities, they would understand why we need to be closer to the top, but maybe instead of significantly lags behind the compensation of comparable cities, if we're gonna talk, I wish it would say not significantly
Take that word and just say, and lags behind.
in lags
Or is
behind or
below-
below compensation in comparable cities.
Comparable cities.
I mean, we were 10 out of 11.
And we're proposing,
To be.
whatever number we end up with, it's gonna be, it is a significant increase, and that's why.
Yeah.
And I would just say, and if Lauren would back me, maybe she wouldn't, that lags behind is actually a compensation word.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. When you
I
do
stand corrected. Go with that.
I've used that a lot.
Oh. okay.
Yeah.
Our attorney looked at this paragraph and offered the blue
Okay.
clarifier, so.
Oh, the blue is what she put in? To avoid continually falling behind.
But then I think behind the cost of living doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would take, I'd like to avoid continually falling behind.
There you go.
We're talking about the cities.
All right,
It wouldn't be regular adjustment, wouldn't it be regular consideration of adjustment?
Yeah, that's what we got.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay,
we fully
sorry,
adopted that.
we're all talking at the same time, I can't keep
I
up.
put regular consideration of compensation is important.
Yeah,
yes,
That was your quote,
yeah,
Yeah,
your word.
great.
Good.
So we're continually falling behind, we're gonna leave that in there.
I would. I would.
we're good on 2.
We're moving on.
Good.
Okay, number 3. The current compensation may create this incentive to run for city council for segments of Issaquah's community, for city council 4.
Just.
Maybe we just ought to reverse so disincentive for segments of this community to run for city council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what
that's
you said?
better. That's what's triggering me. So yeah, we can swap that. The incentive for segments of Issaquah's community to run for city council. There you go. That reads better. Thank you.
Yeah, and
I'm good on 3.
it's kind of a little open, so it means, that could mean something different to a lot of different people, so
Mm-hmm.
that's good. Short and sweet.
for increases to base salaries and benefits of city council members are in the long-term best interest of the city of Issaquah and its residents. Fine with that? All right, number 5, the city should maintain the current differential in compensation for those who serve as deputy council president and council president, which is $100 jump
Now,
on.
John wasn't here when we took our consensus vote on that.
Right.
And you disagreed 2 meetings ago with that.
Yeah,
That's where we ended up last time.
you just went to 100, 200 and that with that.
Mhm.
We had some higher numbers when we were doing the worksheet, I think.
Some people did, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I think the president might get more, but not that, but that's my take. I'm one vote, so you guys already voted,
Why do you say that?
because that is a lot more, and deputies just filling in.
Okay.
Then, you know, again, we get into this, what is actual duties versus what you end up doing because you're given a boot. Using proper language here, that, you know, you end up just doing a lot more. As first, you're really representing the city, you are the number 2.
Yeah.
If the mayor should fall. So,
What do you think would be more, say, appropriate you for the?
I'd think more like, you know, 300 or 400, not 200. That was,
So 100 for the deputy and then
Yeah.
200
or 300, 300 to 400, or somewhere there.
So you think there should just be council president and then council member, no different salary for the deputy council president?
I think what I hear is you're fine with 5 and we should discuss the,
The rates.
The rates under
This-
salary.
This table here.
Oh, okay.
Well, but 5, if we change,
yeah, if we change
You
the
have to
rates,
change
5 changes, because we're saying we're gonna keep the differential of 100 for deputy
Yeah.
and council if we change president from. So
No,
if
it
we-
says, that basically says that there is a differential. It doesn't say what it is.
True.
And that's shown on the table.
It does say current differential.
Maybe they
How
can.
about just a differential?
Yeah. That's what I said.
Okay.
The city should maintain a differential.
Right.
Yeah.
Compensation.
Cause we even had a discussion last meeting that why should there be a differential? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're down to the table basically. And of course, the date moved back a month to allow for any members of the public who want to petition. for-
May I ask a question of the administration? Last time, that wasn't a request.
Yeah,
Why this time?
I was thinking about it and I thought, it probably wasn't the best advice in 2015 to have the July 1 date. Because it didn't provide that, at least a 30-day sort of
Oh, that's right. I
pause.
did read that.
And, so I reached out to the attorney and said, do you recommend, would August 1st be better? And she said, yes, because, you could potentially be giving somebody a legal, claim, but a legal standing to then do the initiative. And without it, they'd have to argue their position differently. They'd have to go after the, dollar amount or some other, component within the report. Or
That sounds legit.
Alright, I have a I guess an item that I would love to add then to the recommendations for next time, but go ahead. I'm fine with August 1st. Actually, my question is, why August 1st and why not then push for January 1st? Give them 6 months to figure out if they wanna challenge it, but August 1st, fine.
well, they still only have 30 days.
Right.
From the day we file this.
They only have 30 days to file? Oh, okay.
Yeah, from the day we file this.
There's the language in the sidebar that speaks to 30 days, and then there's, the salary cannot go into effect until it has reached the voters. So,
They do a petition.
right, so we would know by August 1st if we had a valid petition in front of us or not.
And if the petition
They were
is
going-
valid,
on
then,
November's ballot.
They would not receive their salary increase until the voter spoke,
so it would be then deferred the salary increase till
till after the
after,
election.
so it would be December first in that.
Yeah, probably. Most likely, that makes sense.
Would it be retro if it's unchanged?
Then I'll.
Never happened.
I don't think so, because it says it doesn't go into effect until approved by the vote of the people. And so once the election is certified would be the date by which it would be.
I could argue with you.
So we could remove all the, like crazy math headaches if we just said January first for everything, cause.
Well, but remember the conversation we had back a month and a half ago, just that, we wanted it in place before the election.
Election, yeah.
So it's obvious what people are getting into on that. So if we put it January first, it's not, there's some weird rules about when people start. I can't remember what it was.
It just means the current council wouldn't benefit from any salary increase this year.
But why would you want to delay it further?
Well, I'm just saying, like, if there's a possibility of a referendum, and then it's gonna move to the voters in November, and then why December first, and the council only gets a month of the benefit, or retroactive, who knows, somebody's doing this math and fighting legal challenges left and right.
I would say that we're at like such a small percent of someone filing something. I mean, you have done good work as a commission, and it's not Redmond.
And if we all vote for it, it'll happen.
I mean, again,
I'm not concerned about it from
Alright.
an implementation perspective.
Alright.
The
So-
only pause was saying, August 1 is really a recommended rather than July 1.
then yeah, then let's, August first. Okay, August first?
Yeah.
August first.
August first it is.
Now about the salaries.
Okay, so salary table, so,
It's the council member that got the biggest jump.
yeah. That's essentially the base.
So we, John, maybe you've noticed this, we didn't decide on the 1,700. We were between 1,700 and 1,800 for the council member.
3-2, yes.
Yeah, well, 2 to 2 or something, because he wasn't here.
Right.
No, exactly, no, well, if I remember correctly, your number was 1,800 from the previous voting, that's what I'm counting on.
Got it.
So I was still referring to your 1,800 number from the, before, you went on vacation.
Yeah.
But in the last meeting, we, the only person not at 1,700 was Jogo, if I remember correctly, who wanted the 1,800, which was aligned with, John's previous vote, because you were 16.5, and then we made a deal and you came back at 1,700. So we were at 1,700, three of us.
So I don't
Thank you.
about it anyway.
Huh?
Well, it's all run
Oh,
out.
no, so we said we'd leave it for further discussion, John.
Yeah, exactly. So we left it open for further.
I'm moving a motion to discuss this, I guess.
So what I would suggest as your scribe here would say, start with the council member base salary.
Yeah.
Somebody make
Yeah.
a motion for an amount, get a second, discuss, and then vote.
Alright, so
For each one.
I'll like
Yes.
make a motion for setting to 1,800
For city council
for the
member.
city council.
So what number?
1,800.
Try to sneak one in there.
He needs a second though.
I'm not checking it.
And what was it, you were saying for?
Try to
Second.
1,800.
Yeah, I second that.
All right.
And now discussion, and it would start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I say that when we were looking at the COLA adjustment, it would be, if the measure that we're proposing for the annual adjustment was in fact from 2015, the salary would have been closer to 1,800. I think that's what we saw before. It's like
About 1715.
yeah, something like that. And, yeah, it just, to me, seems appropriate and not excessive, you know, so. The gist of the. my thinking
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're setting the base here. And then there'll be some COLAs. This does kind of relate to a later question we have to decide, which is there time if annual increases or not? So, but I don't think it's 1,800 is unreasonable, if it's reasonable. But I don't want us to get hung up on it.
Well, we went lower than that because now we're adding the $200 match with the 401k or whatever that's called. We've got life insurance now available, and we've added a stipend for
Low income,
low income.
457 match, yeah.
That's why I was even at 1650 before, because remember, this isn't a job for, this is a job that's people go to for the passion of supporting their community and serving. So it's not really a job, it's more like a passion. Mhm.
The other piece of the argument, sorry. We don't do. I thought there was a
I'm just acknowledging who has the floors for the rotation of the
Yeah,
comments.
thank
Thank you.
What was that, if the CPI would have led to 1,750, but if we use the COLA figure that the city used for the non-represented staff, it actually is 1,500 something.
Mhm.
And we have concern of having the city council outpacing what's given the city staff. And it's still will at 1,700, not as much as 1,800.
Okay, that's new information to consider. That's good to know. All right, everybody weigh in on motion?
I haven't yet. Yeah, I mean, aligned with the comments from Linda, where, I mean, we have a lot of things going into effect, and we have to consider this is a part-time position that is driven, as we found through the data, that it's not, that like the compensation is not a consideration. We do want to remove a hurdle, which is why we're doing a low income stipend and adding a few more benefits on top of that. So I think we as a commission have been aggressive in what we want to broaden that pool of candidates that can come in by the other things. So we need to tame our reach with the base is my position. And that's why I rather keep it lower than the 1,800, but yeah.
Especially because we worked in a cost of living increase or something in there too, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
didn't have that before.
If we move to the motion, which will.
I move to accept the $1,700 salary. for the-
We have a
We have a motion on the floor we need to vote on.
So we want to follow the vote for 1,800.
I'm sorry.
For the base salary for council member, right? That's the motion. So all those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that's failed. So any new motions are on the base council?
I motion that we go with 1,700 for the council member salary.
Second.
August 1.
Okay, moved and seconded. I think we've kind of discussed the whole base salary, so call the vote. Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
So the vote, all those in favor of 1,700?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Machinations of government, okay. So, on to deputy. Do I have a motion?
I would move the deputy be $100 above the council member.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion about that amount for deputy? Don't just vote.
I kind of like your argument though of keeping deputy at the council member level and only putting a upper amount for the council president. Dave, what do you think about what he had to say?
I don't think that's what Joan said, though. maybe Joe clarified.
Isn't that what he said?
No, I think he was proposing to increase for the president, but not to keep the deputy. in the
Keep the deputy at 100 and then making the president 300 or 400.
Oh, I see.
So basically a $100 jump for the deputy
Mm-hmm.
and then a $300 jump from that, or $200 or $300 jump from the deputy to the president,
Thanks.
which is a considerable
Yeah.
leap.
But we're
But
doing
the
still.
scale of the effort is about like that.
Mhm.
It's
Okay.
not twice as much, the deputy, it's more like 4 times.
Oh.
Deputy doesn't really do that much, except filling for president and president something else. They may attend a few more meetings, but they are some of the committees. And the president is not, the president gets to pick who's on what committee, they're not actually in any of them, except for, I guess, committee of the whole.
I think they sit on committees, yeah.
They can if they want, but
Got you.
it's the power of that position, you can decide who's on what committee.
Okay.
Some councils, they can be quite an issue, but this one seems to be going pretty well. Okay, so down on the table is $100 for deputy.
So 1,800.
$1,800 a month for deputy.
1,800 for deputy.
We folding it?
Okay, vote for move, all those in favor, 1,800 for the deputy.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ask the council president, the motion.
Motion,
Okay.
1,900 for council president.
Second. Okay. So I think it should be more.
That's a surprise.
Well, the motion,
Mhm.
you said the motion, what do you, so why
For
1,900 on?
Because I believe that position, again, that position is driven by even more of a drive than the council member. This person wants to lead and possibly wants a career in politics to move forward in the mayor or whatever position. I think it's an investment on the council president's part as far as the time considerations. And I don't think we need to go any higher than $100 over deputy for the position.
I'm open to increasing further, like say $200 to 2,000 for the day. So kind of inclined to
Okay,
follow.
well, we do have a motion for 1,800, so
Hey, I have a question. And from something you said with I honestly don't know, do council members, once elected, run again to become president? Or they just like,
There's a election process.
amongst themselves, so there's 7.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, usually what happens is they have a little bit of informal discussion, like, I'd like to run.
Who's interested?
Anybody interested in
right,
whatever, and then.
Every year?
Yeah, so.
is that a public thing or is that like a closed,
Seven.
behind door
It's a
thing?
public thing at a council meeting,
Okay,
and then they, you know,
Mhm.
Do that process every
take
January.
votes.
okay.
Mhm.
How many, and is it always the same council president year over year?
No, there's a table that I provided to show some history of that, and you tend to see, from my tenure here, where there's a 2-year council president and then deputy president, and then it flips to somebody else, but it's an annual
you're-
election process.
So your comment about basically being like, oh, I wanna be the council president because I have more aspirations and goal
Possibly.
doesn't kinda align with the data, is what I'm thinking.
Well,
Well,
that person
does
may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
That person may speak up in this informal meeting saying, I want to do it, I want to do it.
Right, but
Mhm.
if that was the case, and like, I'm gonna be a council person for 10 years, I'm gonna try to be president for 8 of those, so then I can shine my, like, and be like mayor or whatever, right?
You're gonna do it for 2 years and then say no
Yeah.
more.
You're gonna say.
No, my point is that if it's really about, okay, I'm gonna do this job because it's a stepping stone and not something like, hey, okay, so who's due for being council president? Let's give you this job now. If it's more that I'm seeking the position, I'm more aligned with the, let's keep it at 200. If it's more of a, okay, whose turn is it now to have like 4 times the amount of work, I'm more inclined towards, yeah, no, you need more compensation because of
You
it.
still have to get council members to elect you, so.
Oh, yeah, no, sure.
You're gonna have to go around, well, the way, you know, if you haven't been before, you have to find that somebody's willing to nominate you. So that there's at least a little bit of support for you to vote on your candidacy, and then, so that person nominates you, and then we vote. If I have 2 or 3 nominees, and you have an election, so. It's not unlike what they do in, council mayors, where the mayor is elected, a similar process by the council members. And they have a city manager who actually runs the city. He's the one person that they can fire. So they
City
don't-
manager.
the Council, yeah, well, even the mayor doesn't have the capability of hiring and firing employees in those kind of cities like Bellevue. But they can hire and fire the city manager, so they don't like the city manager doing, then they can replace him. As opposed to here, where strong mayor, he's the CEO, anybody who's salary, she can make a call anytime.
So no deputy council president has been council president or vice versa from the current city council, according to this chart.
Yeah, you have Lindsay Walsh and Zach Hall and Chris Ray
Right.
before. And
Right, but nobody's done both positions that are currently in the city council. They're either been deputy council or deputy council president or president, but they've never sat on the other chair. Right?
It's always done both.
it's so simple, but
Oh, it's not.
his length of service has been.
Oh, because it's not referenced, but okay. It just weird data point, what I'm saying, but, okay. Right,
So right now, the president is getting, would get $200 more than a council
Trying to play
member.
that.
correct. If we keep as the
Keep it at
1900 with the motion that's on the floor,
$200 over the council member. And,
doing 4 times the work.
Well,
well,
so let's talk about that, because I'm not sure the data we got from the survey justifies that.
Yeah.
You know, if I were looking at it without the data, I would have expected it to be that much more work. But the survey results don't say
Don't
that.
align to that, you're right.
And
And again, that's another reason why I'm more aligned to the keeping
Yeah.
it the same,
survey
keeping the
was their
status quo.
chance to really
Yeah.
go for it. And it didn't back up the numbers.
it is $200 more than the council member, so
Yeah,
I'm like, Joe, just on the other side, I'm open, I'm not, this isn't something to pound the table over.
no,
But I would lean towards the $200 because of the data we got from the
Mhm.
survey.
yeah.
Okay, well, all those in favor of the motion for 1900, say aye.
Right,
And opposed? So pass 3-2. So it's the table as it sits, 1918-17. Okay, next is, section 2. Increases.
yeah, we should change the label in there as suggested, general wage adjustments from administration. The header.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would still lean towards using the word subsequent, so that it's clear we're talking about later. It could be subsequent general wage adjustments.
Yeah.
But,
Subsequent increases. Yeah,
Or you might say annual, because it's really all the way to
General
be,
wage
right, it's
adjustments.
annual.
maybe that's how HR wants to say it.
That is, yeah, that's what HR, I think, or the lawyer proposed.
So the sentence that says no annual increases under this section will be given to budget for that same year provides. We're trying to reword the mechanism here.
Base salary, should we say,
Clarity on what the.
should we say base salary increases? Are we gonna apply COLA
Base to me
to
means-
the
Yeah.
to the stipend?
I don't think base is the right way. Base to me means it's, because I'm salary is my base and then I'm commission above that. So,
What?
base would mean that you're adding something to it every month, wouldn't it?
Is it general necessary?
No, it's a base salary,
Base means that you have other add-ins.
The general is.
which we do, that's my point.
No, for adjustments,
HR.
City
just
employees.
salary adjustments.
Yeah, what I meant is like, I guess we can
If
explain it in
it's like
the
1,700
word,
a
in
month,
the word.
then it's 1,700 a month. If you call it 17 a base, that means you're adding something else to the 1,700. Are we adding something else? See,
Wait, just,
versus
okay.
it doesn't matter.
I would suggest in the first sentence of that section two, to take out the and continue to attract quality candidates. I think it's just not to avoid dilution or compensation. That seems a bit out of place.
I would change the quality, word quality to diverse instead. But, that's me.
I agree that that's our goal. I'm not sure how the COLA adjustment does that.
I'm not sure how it attracts quality candidates either.
Because why
It's,
Right, but these are elected positions.
right,
Is that tied to quality?
I would hope it.
If there's competition.
The candidates,
Oh, I-
the voters choose.
I hope I'm rich when I'm, when I get retired, but.
Candidates. Then
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm unclear about what we're adding or not adding. Possible suggestion.
maybe just, yeah, my suggestion was just to take that out, I feel that it's not adding to the sections, just kind of. Yeah, so.
In order to avoid the illusion of council compensation, the above salary shall be adjusted as follows.
I'm comfortable with that.
That's fine. Yep.
Okay, so right now it's not a date certain there, council member shall.
January first, and the council salary shall be increased.
So do we need to vote on that too, or what's the procedural aspect?
I think we need to vote on this next bullet point. Because that sets a rate.
Right,
So the wording is not,
right.
but this next one we do. But I want to just look at what's there, and I've got a motion, and we can do.
Administration wanted to have someone make comments on this specific,
On the third bullet,
The-
not on.
on the third bullet, no, okay, great. Sorry. Did-
But HR or the lawyer put it in blue.
Just
The language that refers to general wage
Yeah.
and
Just-
master salary
Master
ordinance.
salary,
Okay,
And take out as COLA.
Is general wage adjustment a line item on the budget will be clear?
We do include a line, we don't have it line itemed out within the budget itself. We do have the ability, like for what's presented to the council and the public. For any positions, we don't get into the level of detail, in what we produce, but we do have that detail on the back end. So we have the ability to have a line item, not in a publicly facing area, but in our software our budget software system to note, what is the base wage and then what is the cost of living adjustment?
And that's done through presentation and typically a memo.
Correct. Yes.
to Council, and this is the language that's typically reflected.
Okay, yeah, my only, I'm just trying to make sure, what we've talked about is a percentage.
Mhm.
Right? And so as long as the language in your view identifies what that percentage is.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and it's helpful to note that it follows, the same as non-represented staff, as that is, usually something, I mean, it's something that's set for all non-reps, so those are easily definable on what COLA is applied.
Non-union,
Unrepresented.
yeah,
Basically all the salary positions.
all right.
Okay, so I don't think we need to vote on that then, that's.
Because the dollar amount matches what you
And
voted on.
100, 200 hasn't changed because it's over.
But what this does do, for clarity, is no matter what the wage increase is, the adjustment is applied to the council member salary, and then the $100 and $200 increase is applied to that.
Right,
Right.
so it's not,
Yes.
the 100 is not gonna be adjusted.
There's no percentage applied to the 100 or 200.
Correct.
So question to, one comment I posed at the start of the memo is, we typically in the code speaks to council member as one word. Does it help, if this paragraph referred to council member as the position? Or is this do you understand if we keep it as is?
The council members.
Before you answer that,
Sure.
I don't care if it's what you.
I'm okay.
It's a one word either, right there.
No, I'm fine with like doing a find a replace on all councils, based member and saying council member everywhere. Actually, there's a bunch of places in the whole document where we say member and not council member. Should we like standardize how we're mentioning this so that it's everywhere the same?
Yeah, I defined it at some point. So,
You said-
so I could use member, but if you want to switch it all to
Okay.
council member,
We'll
I'm.
take that as a substantial.
Yes,
change.
not just
Okay,
to change.
Freely,
Please.
okay,
Sounds good.
all right, thank you.
Take a motion to fight on the wording. Okay,
Do we don't need to vote on
No,
having an annual adjustment?
no,
on bullet one,
you can.
like
but
what bullet two?
I
Because
think
we voted on it last time.
There was already consensus on that. What, the one is the last bullet there. That's the one that we need to have a motion on.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Well,
I
we
think
need
this
to,
motion would be
The one
helpful.
before.
yeah, we need to discuss that, not item two, because we weren't aligned yet on the capping
Right.
of the COLA.
Should it-
January to
Should it be ongoing, or is there an end date for?
Right.
So, okay, I'll make a motion then, say that it shouldn't have a cap, that they shouldn't have an end date.
Second,
Then to the administration or the city council to decide when it's appropriate to call the salary commission. And if somehow it's working well, 2030 to continue, and then, then decide that there's no need, and then I would be happy to let that continue.
I know that, your main point was you want representation of the citizens in this. We heard from public comment today that it's important and that there's something that, like, we shouldn't even consider a COLA, right? I think, and I think I mentioned this last time as well. Your point, so like well taken, that, yeah, we want these discussions and this work to be put into place. It takes me like, why then, if we cap it at 5, we're gonna go 5 plus 8, which is 13 years for them to realize, oh, we need the thing again, because I forgot the COLA stopped in 2030 and now it's 2038, and we should again call the independent commission. Wouldn't it serve better if we just didn't include a COLA at all and let them figure it out in 8 years that they need one of these, right? I think we should like let it run and let them realize that, oh, maybe we should reassess this at some point. but not let us fall behind as we did so much, right? And I think capping it kind of circumvents the whole COLA
That's
mechanism, right? That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, like kind of circumvents and also, I just, my sense is that I agree with let's say the underlying goal there, right? That there should be a salary commission, and so I just suppose I disagree with the need of us introducing something here to force the hand of the mayor, or, you know, I feel that, yeah, that can and should be done, but there's no need to do anything beyond just the fact that, you know, the mayor should be calling a salary commission at some point, you know, and that's the thing, their attribution and.
I propose something like, amend your proposal to have no end year except as an economic condition warrant. So they're getting an increase, it's kind of trucking along with inflation, but some other circumstances happen. Of what, you can't really know. Then have another commission and consider all these other factors. But I don't see the factors we looked at changing much, they're kind of similar to 2015, so I don't know that, you know. And then I am relying on finance to really consider cost of living factors and have an accurate picture of that, so. But there's also the bullet point number 3.
Yeah, we have,
Tough times, no raise.
we're giving already a mechanism for finance administration, city council even, to stop COLA for that year if they see fit, as a sequel years. After 2030, they can, yeah.
So I'm not arguing with that at all. I mean, we've put in 2 protections. One is the COLA is gonna be the same as non-rep, and so if finance determines that non-reps are getting nothing, council members are gonna get nothing.
Right.
And then the second is, wherever we end up with this layout, if there are layouts in the budget and that kind of stuff. So I'm not concerned about that. My view is the evidence shows us that the city council waits a long period of time to have a salary commission, even when they're not getting increases. Because they waited from 2015 to 2023. If we allow the COLA to continue indefinitely, I think the natural assumption is that they're going to wait an even longer period of time before they call a salary commission. And then even when they do call a salary commission, there's going to be less for the salary commission to do, because the COLA's been in place and it may be a salary commission that does not.
And
Thank you. And then, I think what we've done here is an important piece of public participation. And we've all had different views of how to approach this. And putting the city council in a position where there's little incentive to creating a new salary commission. Reduces the possibility, maybe eliminates this kind of community participation. I loved it when Stephen made my point for me today. And, you know, I think we're telling, if we go ahead with no end date on this, we're telling the city council, trust us, we've done this work for a long time. And I don't want to send that message to them. I want them to rely on their residents citizens in this case, to participate.
That's a good point.
Well, my opinion is simplify things is always better, but you know that from working with me. And there's a cost to having the commissions, and so do we need to have them all, you know? Because they weren't being reliable about having them, that's the other factor, right? So if you leave it where, okay, at some point you have to call for another one, they just weren't doing it, and it just went on and on. It's like, let's just relieve them of the burden of having to remember to call for one, or the, ethical risk, or whatever you wanna call it. Candidacy risk of asking for one, and just have it automatic, it's something you have to think about. That's my thought, so.
Can I ask a question on there? What's your reluctance in pushing the council's hand and to have another salary commission?
Cause they won't do it. That's my thing, is they get too busy and they don't think about it, and next thing you know, 8 years goes by.
Can I answer? My reluctance would be that I feel that two things, that one, it may not be necessary, and two, I think that I don't feel that it's necessarily on us to do that, you know, that is like the idea of us having to push them to call on the commission just seems to be extraneous to the setting the salary, right? And the way I see this is that the calling a commission to review, it's part of the administration's responsibility and city council and so on, and it will continue, not that should not have anything to do with what we do here. And I would see that, I think, Victor used the word, like circumvented. I see this is kind of like circumventing a little bit the outcome of our work. I would say that if somehow comes, 2031, and the mayor and everybody sees like, there's no need to call, everything seems to be appropriate still. I would see that as a sign of us having done a good job, that there's no need to call another commission. And I mean by that saying there's no need, not as in there was a need that they didn't do it, right? Let's say that there was a need and they just not call and they're procrastinating. I think our job is to ensure that the salary is appropriate, and I think putting a cap would be kind of like limiting that a little bit.
My thinking though, Joe, is when you say the mayor and the city council is determining there's no need for salary commission, I think that's taking on the authority of the salary commission. The salary commission is designed to determine whether or not city council salaries are appropriate. Right?
If it called, right? Like
Well,
there
if
is
it
no
called,
permanent salary.
right,
commission.
but that decision that there's no need because the salaries are keeping up is withdrawing the power of the community, from the community to make that decision.
That might be like where I disagree, is that point there. Like, I don't think it's taken from the community, because I don't know how many people in the community have had any influence in calling the salary commission or not calling the salary commission. And I would think that the influence from the community is still there. They're voting for the mayor, they're voting for city council, they can call the city council. And I don't even see that as a big factor, right? Let's say, I think the doesn't seem like the community is or will be calling or demanding or expecting salary commission per se, right? I think the community has a general, stake on city, and that will continue.
Just to be clear, by community, I mean us.
No, yeah.
Not that someone, the community is rallying around and having a salary commission, but we are representatives of the community.
Right.
And with the mayor and the city council saying, I'm not justifying what they did for the last 8 years. I think that was wrong. They did. It may have been simple, it may have been easy, and they may not have cared enough. But anything that takes the decision-making that's supposed to be in the hands of the community, out of the community, and by community, I mean us, I think is a mistake.
But we're not taking it, right?
Yeah, it's already in their hands to call.
It's already in their hands,
They're
yeah.
not calling, so.
But I think you'll recognize it's gonna happen less if we don't have an end date.
Perhaps, maybe not, and I think that's just then going beyond of like you know, second guessing whether or not they would be called. I mean, I don't know. I just feel that seems to me unnecessary and maybe even conflicting with the primary goal here, which is like, hey, if we can make the salary be appropriate all the way to 2040, that's means we are doing a good job, you know, like it shouldn't be our concern when they were gonna decide to call another, because this commission will be dissolved, right? So,
I think it is our concern. Because we are the only salary commission there is. And if we don't create an environment where there's gonna be another, then there isn't gonna be another.
but then if you think about that, if we push this, then what would be should we just make the salaries adjustment worse so that there's a more need, maybe that the mayor is gonna feel like, hey, this guy didn't do a good job, I'm gonna call it again, is that a positive, right? Like, because that seems to be the mechanism here, like, let's make sure that what we are doing in terms of salary adjustments is not good to a point that they now feel that they'll need another salary commission. So if we were to take that to, you know, let's say some absurd situation, would be like, oh, so then let's make sure that there is no, like Victor said, that there is no COLA, right? That would be the.
Well, we're trying to balance. I mean, all of this is a balance, right?
Yeah,
And
fair.
so, you know, I voted for the COLA increase and I voted for, you know, salary increases because I think it's appropriate and, you know, there isn't, in my view, a need to revisit it, you know, for 5 years.
Yeah, that makes
you know,
sense.
I could
It's
be
a,
wrong,
it's a sensible position.
but at some point, I think I'm just very reluctant to create conditions where the power of the community and the independent salary commission is not used.
All right, so shall we move to the motion for a vote? Does anybody else have any discussion?
So we're only voting on the cap?
We're voting on, is there a limit, a time limit? So,
Right now, agreed, on each January thereafter. And it would not have that end date.
So, I'll say just one more thing before we move on to voting. Yeah, because again, you made some really good arguments and you changed my mind a little bit, right? The thing is, you may have changed my mind too much because now I'm in the view, because if we want to force the hand, and I've said this before, if we want to force the hand to have another commission, why have COLA at all? Right? Because if we introduce COLA for 5 years, it's just delaying the delay, right? Now, like, and one of our guiding considerations that we're looking to balance here is the desire to avoid lengthy periods in which compensation is not reconsidered or adjusted. If that's one of our guiding principles, why have COLA? Right? Because this is either like this line is either in favor of the COLA or against the COLA altogether. Is how we view it, right? Because again, if we want the participation, which again, we do, there's 100 other ways that the community can participate in the process. It doesn't have to be the salary commission, right? What we want to do is safeguard the disparity of our salaries becoming stagnant and us landing in 3, 5, 8, 10 years in 10th place again. And, you know, then whenever, as John puts it, like whenever they like feel like, oh, wow, maybe we should call another one, because it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's not something that they get pushed to right now. Like the reason that we're here currently is not that they felt obligated to do it, because again, council doesn't really care about compensation in that sense. Now, I'll put it to you a different way, and I'll ask a question of the administration. When the increases happen every year for non-represented employees, the council votes on those increases and reviews those increases, correct?
Correct.
So when this increase is going to affect, it'll be part of that packet that they review, correct?
Correct.
So they'll see that line item and they'll see year over year, their salaries increasing. And they're gonna see that number ticking up. I feel that that is a bigger reminder of, oh, maybe we should have somebody review because our salaries continue to go up every year. Because remember, our findings could have been, wait, this is too much money. We need to reconsider the salaries and reduce it. That's another thing that the commission could do. It's not only about increasing salary, right?
Right.
So what happens if they see their things tick and go, wait, we need somebody to review this? And then they call the commission again and the commission removes COLA or whatever, right?
Well, they can't remove COLA for us,
Huh?
for them. They cannot remove COLA for them. They're not voting at that point on their COLA.
No, the commission, I'm saying.
They call
They call another commission and that commission said, you know, we're gonna remove COLA and we're gonna remove 457 compensation. Fine, right? But I feel that the COLA being there and them being year over year reminded of their salaries also being adjusted every year is a better reminder that, oh, there's this mechanism of a salary commission that we should have somebody review this, than not being reminded until somebody brings it up 8 years down the line of saying like, hey, you guys know that you draw salaries and somebody should look at it?
So I would say two things to that, and then I want to go back to your point about no cap at all. Okay, so one is, I'm gonna guess, and Susan can tell me if I'm wrong, that what the council will see is just a line item for council expense, compensation. I don't know even it's called compensation. You're just gonna see a dollar number in there.
But there's a breakdown somewhere in what they review.
There's the salary ordinance that would indicate the rates of all the positions.
But the salary, but that would not include the city council members.
It
The
would,
salary
going
is-
forward, it would, yes.
And in the budget document, at least historically, we've shown a table of the current year adopted budget, and usually in categories of personnel costs, salary and wages, general operating expenses, professional services, so buckets like that. And then it'll show what's proposed for the next budget cycle, so they'll see the comparison, at least broadly within a category of salary and wages, not broken down necessarily by, base salary and then cost of living adjustment or anything like that, but they'll see a comparison that it went up from the current year to the proposed, assuming there's a adjustment for all non-reps.
Solely for the councilman.
Yeah, so it's not super obvious necessarily, so there's what we've shown, we've adapted a little bit each year, but what we've shown most recently is a table by division within the executive department of which council is. So they have their own division within the department. So we won't have it necessarily called out or have its own section in the document. It would really be seen as part of a table in the document.
So the other thing I would say is I have trouble thinking that the city council, when they see their own compensation, even if they were to see it and they dig into the details as they do, and see their own compensation going up, that would trigger in their mind, we're getting paid too much, and we need to have a salary commission to reduce our pay. I just don't think that's likely to happen. It's much more likely to happen, in my view, that things are okay, things are going fine, we're getting increases, we don't need to do anything about it anymore, we don't need to have a salary commission. Now, to your point about not having any cap at all, again, I think we're balancing, we have an election for mayor every 4 years. You could argue we should have elected mayor every year because feelings may change. But we have to set out an appropriate period of time to let things settle down, see how it works, and then go back to the public for election of mayor, or in this case, salary commission. What I said last time, and I stand by this, is I don't particularly care what the number is, whether it's 3 years, as we had on the table before, or 5 years or something. I just think it's important to have a number. And so what I would suggest, maybe we may end up in the same place, is we vote on the concept of whether or not there is a an end to the COLA without putting a number to it, and then if that passes, we decide the number.
There's a motion right now of no,
So that's
No.
your yes or no.
Okay,
so if this,
Okay,
if this doesn't pass, then we're gonna have one.
okay,
And
good,
then we can vote on what it is.
okay.
Um,
I didn't remember what the motion said.
I don't remember what it is. What
The
is it?
motion is to
Remove
read
the-
without the date in it.
Remove the.
Yeah, remove the date. No end date.
No, no, end date.
Otherwise, the paragraph remains the same. So, all those in favor of no end date, say aye.
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 3, 4, 1. Okay,
And opposed?
and opposed, say 1.
Thank you. So that does pass.
Noted.
Okay, so that is that. Now we have the next item on, next bullet come down there.
I motion to,
Go ahead.
Sorry, which one? Which one we talking about?
yeah,
We are now down to no annual increase
No
in
annual
section
increase.
2.
In case of layoffs or anyways.
Right.
What was the city's recommendation on this? It was just language thing, or was there more?
Well, they wanted a mechanism kind of more workable.
Right, administration asked for more discussion and clarification. Please ensure with HR and finance staff are included in the conversation prior to any final vote on this item. That's what the note says here. So,
So is the concern that this is not very easy
they don't like it.
and to manage is that way?
right,
It could mean a lot of different things and
Right,
it could be
definition of
interpreted
layoffs,
very
it's-
different, depending on who's, you know.
So there's a couple of ideas, like one is, if the number of FTEs is less than the prior year, then they don't get a raise, so it's kind of a, sort of rough barometer of what's wrong in the budget. Another idea I saw thinking on the same lines was, if the, operating, expense is less than the previous year by a
More.
significant amount, so if it's going down, if the amount of available cash is going,
Operating,
I think you would, if you were headed to that route, you'd want to say general fund or something.
it's a general fund, yeah.
That might also be a little bit tricky, only because sometimes a budget might come down because there was a large one-time expense in a certain year, so it's a little fluffier.
or
to
last year you
calculate.
had a grant for something that you don't have the year
Yeah,
next.
that's
And
true.
and on the first one-
It does happen.
And on the first one,
Sometimes, yeah.
there's a number of reasons why you wouldn't eliminate an FTE, position, like
that is. not-
you eliminate one headcount because, oh, we no longer need one full person doing
Or
this
you-
stuff.
Yeah.
Alright, or
Or you
we
still need to
transition
hire.
2 of these heads into one of this other head, and then that eliminates one, and then it triggers a stop when in reality it doesn't.
Overall, though,
Yeah.
we've got 200+ positions, it always averages out, there's always growth in some other department. Even if, the need for a certain kind of problem washer is no longer needed. That history would show that if you use an FTE count, it's pretty reasonably accurate that there's just less jobs.
Yeah.
And so, as far as the moral hazard of getting myself a raise, why vote for a budget that cuts the number of people who work here.
Yeah, but I have a question. Has there ever been, again, to our knowledge,
Sure.
or will there ever be a time when there is a problem that's causing layoffs or, budget cuts or something, and still have COLA adjustments for salaries for non-represented employees? Or is that something that, okay, we're laying people off, we're not gonna do COLA for anyone this year?
There has been mild recession examples.
Yeah,
So in a mild recession, maybe they decide not to fill positions that were open in a couple departments, and they have some natural attrition. Things get a little smaller, they don't want an exodus of talent, so they still have some type of a COLA.
The caveat that I give to that too is in the scenario, like when I started in 2019, as we were building the 2020 budget before we knew what was gonna happen in 2020. We did have a number of positions that in order to identify at least some one-time savings, we decided not to fill temporarily. We still kept the positions themselves in the budget, we just didn't assign dollars to it. So there's a little bit of a distinction between the salary or between this, the number of adopted full-time positions and which positions are funded. We haven't had that distinction since 2020. I'd say it's a pretty rare time when that'll be the case, that we intentionally say during budget development, we're not gonna fill these positions. But generally, I think it would be pretty unlikely. It's rare, let's put it that way. It's rare that we would increase, in particular, non-rep COLAs, while anticipating significant layoffs. And to John's point earlier too, because we have so many positions in total, it's highly unlikely that if we were to back out one or two positions for whatever reason, which hasn't happened in my time outside of the pandemic itself, that if we were to eliminate positions, there wouldn't be another one added somewhere else, at least one other. We've added positions every year that I worked here, with the exception of the actual pandemic. And then we brought a lot of those back.
Okay.
So,
So does that mean that this provision here may actually not be doing much? Because it kind of works itself out,
I think.
but I mean, just like from the point that you made it, that it's rare that we would have significant COLA adjustment if there are financial hardships.
for the, I think it still leaves the door open for if as part of budget development. Cause I think there are two parts of the process here. There's a circumstance where during budget development, before the council adopts the actual budget, that it would be unlikely in that scenario, for it to, for there to be a COLA increase and like a total FTE reduction. What is more likely, although hopefully still rare, is if we get into another pandemic situation where those adjustments happen mid-year. That gets a little bit trickier, but I think the next bullet point, or there was another bullet point that spoke to that piece, I thought, of mid-year. Maybe not.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
But even in that case, we didn't like pull back COLA's issue in January 1st,
Yeah.
right? So you'd still get the issue, the COLA for that year, you just wouldn't get it. Like we didn't have it for 2021, I don't think, or something like that.
I believe, yeah, I think that's true. We didn't have one in 21. And it gets, understanding that we're tying the COLA adjustments to the COLA adjustments for non-rep. One of the considerations sometimes is, so some bargaining groups have their COLAs built in with a minimum and a maximum, depending on what is, we use the June to June CPI. So if the June to June CPI comes in at 6%, well, 10% as it did last year, most bargaining groups didn't have a cap last year, but if they had had a cap at, for example, now most of them have 2 to 4%, minimum 2%, maximum 4%. So if COLA had come in at 6, or the CPI had come in at 6% again, the most they'd get is 4%. But then there's also the flip side, of course, of if, I don't know when this will happen again, unfortunately, but if CPI was 1%, for example, then they'd get the 2%. But that causes some issues when non-reps are not tied to those same minimum maximums. So sometimes that'll be a consideration, that if COLA comes, or if CPI comes in at 1%, the bargain groups get the 2% because that's their minimum. Non-reps should theoretically also get the 2%, because otherwise it's not really that equitable, just because they don't have a contract. But depending on the budget year, depending on what kind of shortfalls we're looking at, non-rep tends to be the balancer for a COLA, or one of the balancers. I apologize, I've lost track of what question I was answering.
I think that we would spend at least 4 more meetings just discussing bullet point 3.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
apologize for interrupting. The discussion that you have here will help us, I don't expect voting, but it would help us understand what your intent is for it and how we might draft language and bring it back in the final report. I think this is sort of the piece that doesn't get resolved tonight, but we get direction on.
So if I understand correctly, we as a commission want to provide a lever to the budget office, right? To skip the wage increases for council members in the years of financial hardship.
Yeah.
That is what we want. What mechanisms the administration and the budget office use to determine that and make it happen, I don't think we care much about, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I try to wordsmith something to the effect that annual increases under section 2 will not be given if the annual adopted citywide FTE positions count is less than the previous year. Because that was something I heard from finance, that was a possible and manageable approach to it.
We could work with that, yeah.
The FTE budget adopted count.
Right, so.
Is
the budget
less-
has adopted full time. And so that year to year, that can change, usually goes up, like she was saying, sometimes it doesn't. And if it's going down, it's because the council said, cut.
Yeah.
Cut. And so if they're doing cut, then they should get the COLA raise, even if we give the COLA raise to the salary employees, because we don't want people to quit in the middle of
Yeah.
the cut, which is, it does happen. I mean, corporations do that, cities do that, where you don't want your best talent to leave just because you can't have as many positions as you did.
Is there any other ways which financial hardship is contemplated in budget? Let's say that we can, find out kind of a way out here by just referring to, because it's kind of an open, we're trying to create that criteria, but our intention is more open ended, right? So question is, do we have to be specific, or is there a way here that we can make reference to that and put this either in the hands of the city council itself to vote, or the budget itself to declare, that, hey, this year was tough, something.
Trying to keep it somewhat independent by being specific, because it could, it's not likely around here, but in a bigger city, it could be a political football. Where the mayor says, we're gonna, I'm fighting with the council, so we're gonna not give them a raise. And make up any criteria that she wants to, or he wants to, and there you go, right? So I think by being specific, at least it's there it is, how you measure it, right? Try to keep it simple. You can't explain it to the member of the public, it's too complicated.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and when we're building the budget, there could be any number of factors that could lead to a reduction in how much we have available. So in some cases, we're looking at some state-driven revenues that, due to their own policies, are gonna reduce how much we bring in, even outside of larger economic factors. I could give you 5 examples of things like that, but, overall, over the last few years in particular, our revenues some have increased, some have declined. But the ones that we would refer to as the big 4, I would say the main one that we pay attention to for economic vitality in particular is sales tax. That it's a decent barometer for how many people or how people are spending their money, where are they spending it? It is probably the revenue that we monitor the closest. And it's our largest general fund revenue by far. So that said, that's kind of an internal mechanism we use sometimes to decide, do we need to cut, or do we have room for additional increases in general? But it's not super well defined. Like, it's not in a financial policy of, if sales tax decreases by this % over the prior year, then this gets triggered. So all this long way of saying, we don't have, at least none that I can think of at the moment, mechanisms that are written into policy that define, that like we could easily draw on to say, this is an economic downturn, this is a sign of hardship ahead that we could use as a trigger for something like this. I think there are a number of mechanisms we could use. The ones John mentioned with FTE count, we could look at. Another one you mentioned besides the operations one.
Like, the general fund budget,
Mhm.
or some top line number that's just easy to look at and go, oh, that's going down.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
sales tax.
I say that let's make the language that you just mentioned, the language in the document, and just send it to administration for vetting and seeing if the FTE, because
The FTE.
I think that's the best one I think we can come up with without spending 4 months researching and figuring out the exact wording.
There's a lot of what ifing.
Yeah.
Exactly,
What if this
because
happens?
there's and we don't wanna make it overcomplicated for the administration to
Thank
figure out, is this a lawful increase in salary or not, right?
Yeah.
So,
This is a clear trigger for us, the FTE count if it comes down from the prior year.
right,
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's a consensus there.
that's good.
We'll table my motion and just have it, use the intent of it to craft something.
Yes.
right.
Send it to you
Okay.
now.
Yeah, some of these nuts.
Oh, I remember getting notes from John. So handy. Okay.
Yeah, this one seems important to have there, even just from the perception, even the public when I was putting a call automatic to have some caveat. I think we have to have it.
Okay, that was section 2, life insurance. Just one minor edit there, not represented. Section 4, there's a question of, do we change the title to low income based or income based or what? How do we-
In our presentations and, in just general speak, the word low income has
Yeah.
routinely been used, and I just want to know, should we, or do you want to continue to use that reference? It could cause some pause as someone's trying to decide if this is a benefit that they should be applying for or not. But
Or who's the consumer of this document? If it's the
Right.
public trying to understand a recommendation, the word shows our intent more, if they have the word low.
I agree.
I'm fine with
more clear if we says low income, right?
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah,
the consensus was go. with
It's
low.
not really a better way to say it.
low income based type in.
That's the agreeable way. Okay.
Low income stuff.
Maybe,
Our public.
do you still need base? Maybe it's just low income stuff.
yeah.
I have a question.
Why did it turn my head?
I know, I'm sorry.
So one of the question that I have is that, and presumably this is gonna be in the declaration and so on, that the attestation, but what is included in what income is considered for the definition of 80%? Like, for example, does the presumably the base salary would count?
It's household income, so it would be for the individual, and however they count the household number, that's typically someone who's 18 and older with an income. And it would be typically any income So it could be a bonus, it could be the salary, it could be,
The stipend
another
itself.
program.
Let's say, for example, if they are qualified for the stipend this year, then we will come January next year, are they passing based on their salary, including the stipend?
So they push them over the top.
Possibly, because the amount that they earn could impact other programs that they participate in, if there's a threshold as well.
So it seems kind of circular a little bit, right? Like that, to say,
It's pretty,
if the income, if the stipend puts them above the 80%, they would lose the stipend. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's always been the problem with programs.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's the same with everything. Taxes with all of them.
And I think what we've heard from staff is we don't want to come up with a different definition of household income than they use for other
Right.
programs.
Right.
So I think we just delegate that.
I think, yes, I think that we should keep it as is and and say that we're tying it to the AMI, 80% of the King County area median income. And let the administration figure out what their household income is at the moment that they apply.
so what I would like is a formal motion that would set the percent and the dollar amount. That would be a good one for this paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
I motion, we keep it at below 80% to receive the stipend.
Are you making a motion?
Yeah, I said.
Oh.
I
Do you
motion.
want to include the
Second.
amount or do that motion separately?
Do it all together.
And the, what was
It's
it?
350 is what's listed.
That's what we decided last time.
350? Oh, the stipend is, yes,
Below
It's
80% at
because we
350?
wanted to keep it in line with something else. Yes, that's right.
Okay, so there's a motion
A
made.
motion to keep it at 80. I appreciate that guy's comments though, to 60, because we passed that back and forth for a while too. But to keep it at 80% and the stipend amount be at 350.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
I,
Thank you.
Those opposed, Victor?
Nay.
They're opposed.
We didn't
Yes.
have, you want to have discussion? We didn't have a discussion.
I didn't know it was, yeah.
Yep.
I wanted higher. I want more than 350. I want 500.
Nope, somebody came in and told us that it had to be lower to keep in line with something. Otherwise, we were too high.
No, I don't remember that. I
Should
should
we have a discussion?
No, it's fine. You guys are gonna shoot me down. I just wanted to say, it's 350, fine.
457 match effective January 24. My motion, we accept that.
I second.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay, we're going too fast.
Let's get the agenda done. Trying to save myself some time tomorrow, so. And the motions are important because I have to reflect them in the minutes, so.
Okay, sorry.
Here we go.
We will wait.
Okay, so we're on match.
Yes, we're on match, and I think we need to add the date, the January 1, 2024, the effective date.
And I heard the motion was made.
The motion to accept January 1, 2024.
As the,
And 200
and
$200.
up to, yeah. And the second was, I hear it,
Yes, second.
fine.
What?
Okay.
We're good?
Uh-oh, I broke that one. Everybody's alarms are going
Oh,
off.
heck was that?
It's an alarm from work.
I don't know.
I got page.
Okay, let's have a vote real quick. All in favor of, what was it, $200 and
Yes, I,
80? Okay,
I,
all right.
Bye.
Any opposed? There being none, it passes unanimously.
maybe that's what I was remembering. No, it wasn't, that was always 200. I think somebody came in and told us we needed to lower the stipend. You don't remember that?
Okay, then we got,
Number 6.
section 6,
I remember. it
basically
started.
status quo for all the existing
Yeah, that's just language.
benefits.
Okay. Sure.
You don't need a motion on that. do you?
I motion we accept language, oh, we don't need a motion?
No.
Okay, good.
And then the recommendation section, could be your opportunity to encourage the council to reconvene more frequently a commission. It could be, that you think they need more training about how to seek reimbursements. I don't know if that's something you want to argue for. And then the third one was, we talked a little bit about the equity framework, and we do have a board and commission. The question would be, you do have a low-income stipend program that's in place. Is there some message or something more you want to send for a different body to have on the work plan? And not that you can direct the work, but you can recommend that work be considered.
Can you flesh that out a little more? I'm not sure what we'd be asking.
So, you have a couple things embedded in your report that talk about, diversity and have, it's the right community represented on your council. And your focus is, you can provide some salary, you can provide maybe a stipend. How do you know if it's effective? Because you'll be gone as a commission after this moment. So do you recommend that administration review this data at some time? Do they share the information? Are there other, maybe campaign or election items that, the city could consider in a neutral way? We have a campaign finance, ordinance that talks about, contribution limits in order to, at the time, it was to help someone who says, maybe I want to run for council, but I don't compete if you can go out and have more dollars than I could possibly ever raise. And so there's a conversation there that you could potentially influence. So I just want to give you some space for it.
Thank you for that. What could the equity board do with it? Would they collect data? Would they make recommendations?
Maybe
What's the
have
end
a
result of that?
conversation. Ponder the question, ask the community what they think. I don't want to,
It's
just a
Put
concept.
anything in there we want to, a lot of the other ideas that we kind of bounced
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in it. That's why I'm pursuing, but I don't want to recommend something that is not feasible
Yeah.
or doesn't.
Well, we have an established board, who has purpose and intent and, we're striving internally, to think about our work plan items and how our other boards and commissions make their decisions and how they can either filter or share, what they're working on to ensure that there's some, community input and that the 13 questions are being answered. And I think you guys just had some questions that you felt were outside of your authority to do.
And forgive me, the equity board is that a board like this, or is that a board of staff?
It's a board like this.
It's an appointed official, so they report, and let me pull up their. So I believe they also support the city council, so that's here. Board. So they're one of our newer boards from 2021, and they advise the mayor, city council, and city departments, plans, policies, regs, programs.
It's a lot of people.
Mhm.
And would it be odd or appropriate for us to make a recommendation to another citizen board like that?
What you would do if this is of interest is you would recommend that administration or city council, add this to the work plan for consideration.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it happen, but it makes it, you have a voice to help, send part of your work on to the report.
Would. So let me just throw out what I'm thinking, and this may be either too simple or not simple enough. I don't know. A recommendation that the city council add to the work plan the collection of data regarding city council membership and candidates to determine consistency with the city's equity initiatives, something like that.
Oh,
I'm just not sure what to do with this.
you can't do anything. You can't force people to run for Congress because we need more equity. What are you gonna do? Go to the projects and like say, hey, run for Congress? Right? It's equity is something that's really difficult. You can't force people to do stuff that they're just not interested in doing. Right? You want participation, you're trying to, we remove barriers to encourage participation, but we can't force people to.
Well, and that's why, I think you're exactly right, Victor. That's why I was focused on collecting data as opposed to directing someone to solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's fair. My point is, what can they do with the data? We're expensive, like it's an expense to capture the data. What do you do with it once you have it though? That's the thing.
From my days as city clerk, and I want to say that this went into maybe 5 years ago, maybe less, that Washington State adopted something about redistricting with elections, and it's triggered if there's a community or there's a process for it. I haven't been through it, but the community can say, I don't feel that we're equally represented, and then it forces some data collection and then some sort of action to happen and to determine if the city needs to go into a district mode or not.
Yeah.
By neighborhood.
Why can't our recommendation then be,
Yeah,
hey, equity board,
consider districts.
you should, you should take a look at the diversity and in the candidate pool that is being attracted for city council, something like that. Tell them, like, we think there's a problem in this area, go figure it out, instead of saying like, oh, do these steps to try to figure out the problem. Just let them, right? Maybe just bring attention to the problem.
But that's
It
why I
may
asked
be
the
enough,
question in the
and
beginning.
let them figure it out.
When we first started meeting, I asked that question if we had districts, because I grew up in Kent and kids' high school, everything went through Kent until we moved up here, and there were districts. And so when I was loudmouth on the PTA, put it that way, I had a title, and somebody came to me and said, we want you to run for council. What district are you in? And I ended up in the wrong district, so then I was no longer somebody they wanted to push along. But it was interesting because that was my first exposure to districts, because we had districts, because the west hill of Kent is the one that's got all the trouble. Down in the valley's got a lot of trouble because the jail is down there. And then you've got way out in the East Hill where they're living on golf courses, and so they went with districts. I think that's a great idea. I would like to put in there that we add that a recommendation of council member districts represented. And that way they would.
I don't know if we have enough, I mean, that's a pretty specific recommendation. I think you didn't study it. We don't know enough about that. I think what our ask would be is, if you want the equity board, suggest that they explore election related provisions, or I guess I'm struggling for the right words, but whatever it may be, I would keep it sort of simple, but.
Could it be, like, going back to what Aaron was suggesting, like, in terms of collecting data, recommend to collect data on income of candidates to determine, the low-income populations are, I don't know exactly what, but let's say,
Yeah,
If there is an exclusion, or something, I don't know.
I'm more inclined to go with Victor's just general, simple, ask the equity board or city council to add to its work plan, evaluations of, equity in connection to city council elections,
Mhm.
something very general like that.
Labor, equity and diversity, of city council candidacy, or whatever, yeah.
I agree. Just to me, this is districts.
I mean, one of the things is, the system of, you know, boards and commissions is usually the stepping stone to future council members. So something effective, encourage council members outreach with the help of the diversity commission to recruit more involvement in the city from your represented groups. Just to show that, you know, we'd like you to get involved. Sometimes just asking it just gets people started. But if you never say anything and they have to fight their way in the door, or get the courage to come in, you know, as opposed to being recruited.
I think that's good, John. Let me ask you a question, Tina. So for this group, I mean, I saw it because there was an announcement of you're looking for volunteers. Was there any proactive of trying to identify people?
Yes, and some neighborhoods that we may be missing out on, even though there's not a requirement, say on board, or if one is, you know, it's, one could be, what skill set don't you have that could be helpful here? What neighborhood is not at the table? If you're, you know, all Highlands folks, it could provide some diversity, just from a neighborhood perspective. We are tracking, other data, demographic information, and we'll have a better idea next year what, if we're doing a better job than we have in the past.
So maybe to what we were just talking about with Victor's suggestion, we just add some sort of phrase about feeder entities into the city council to get at what John's talking about.
Yeah, so we're making the promotions too, like, that King County does a good job of offering a lot of workshops on thinking about running and how can we bring more of that to Issaquah. We've done some good programs in the past, but maybe it's ensuring that that effort continues.
Yeah, I still feel like the pipeline we have is the right one, and just getting the people to get into it. Because the thing about board and commissions, you learn more about the city, and it builds your confidence that they're thinking of running, where you gotta actually sell yourself to 40,000, well, it's probably 20,000 voters. You might have something to say, as opposed to just their opinion, because they don't like what happens in front of your house. So it's kind of, you want to set people up to win, you know? Give them the experience so that they can feel confident, so they might actually have a shot.
So I hear you're open to some language, we can draft something with the chairs and put it in the packet for you to flush out in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Are you happy having, is everybody available for the next Tuesday?
Before we make recommendations. Since I got voted down.
I was gonna bring that.
Can we add a recommendation that the city council convene another independent salary commission no later than 2031?
Yes, I was
Yes.
gonna add that one. And also I added a recommendation there that for the next one, can he start a month earlier to avoid the whole August 1st start of thing?
Oh, I was gonna
Cause it's
say,
better to have like a salary increase for half the year than, oh, they're just 5 months or 3 months or 1 month, like.
Yeah.
So it started a month earlier, be done by May 31st, July 1st, it goes into effect.
Yeah, let's go to the recommendation section, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're suggesting that the report is,
He's due by May 31st.
I think the ordinance says
yeah, it says June 30th.
June 30th.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to adopt.
No, it says by June 30th, but I'm saying that the next commission should strive to release the report by May 31st. So that we can have that waiting period for the referendum and whatever, and still be able to do July 1st start of the, salary increase, like that.
That's a desire for.
A recommendation.
For. Yeah, I don't think the salary commission or the, because I worked on the ordinance when it was enacted. We weren't envisioning July 1 as an effective date. We were neutral on, other than providing enough time for the
Right.
referendum component. We had no idea what the commission would want to do if it was.
I'm fine with just dropping it, but again, I'm just thinking like, it's better if you say, oh, you're getting half a year increase and then it's over or whatever, but.
I think we just recommend that Tina has to stay in her position.
Yeah.
for the next one.
Exactly.
So she makes it happen.
So
I
you can
recommend
catch
that
it.
10%
Yeah.
year-over-year raise for that.
Our recommendation is Tina can't leave.
We could recommend that that efforts are made that the commission recruitment, and employment process occurs sooner, so you don't feel so rushed in your timeframe.
Yes, that's great. Let's get language on that.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm fine.
I think we did start it a month earlier than last time, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
And then they took that month away from
The concert started in July across the street.
Yeah.
We're gonna be sitting over here when there's a concert across the street.
Although we would have worked. They did last time.
Okay, so you do have some recommendations, we'll bring them back to
Thank
you.
you.
This is a great looking document, you did some great work on it,
Yes.
thank you.
Good job.
And you've given me a really good direction, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Also,
Yeah,
next
second.
Tuesday, same time, same place.
Actually, last meeting, hopefully, we'll have a nice clean document, we can have a little signing here, and then we'll go over to, have a beer or something.
Yeah.
Whoever's available.
I can
And
hear
then
it.
we'll,
I'm motion to make it 2 years.
I can't drink, but yeah. I'll accompany you.
Yeah, we're part of this.
Thank you.
Everybody's good?
Wait a second.